Kevin Durant's name has been linked to Miami, but is that the right move for the Heat to make this offseason? We debate the pros and cons and break down what you need to know in today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. For daily content on the Heat, click that subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure you're following us on your favorite podcast app. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Have a great show for you today. We're talking about Kevin Durant, his potential fit with the Heat, what they would need to give up to get him, and his impact on the salary cap. Would the Heat be willing to give Durant the Jimmy Butler extension that they weren't willing to give Jimmy Butler? And all of this is based on this question from Locked On Heat insider Malachi, who writes in, can you all discuss sometime what are the pros and cons of trading for Kevin Durant? To me, I would go all in on KD this offseason because he has ties with Bam and Spo with Team USA. Plus, I still think he could have several years left in the tank. But on the other hand, he's going to be a free agent after next season. But couldn't the Heat give him an extension after the trade like the Warriors did with Butler? Maybe I'm delusional, but I feel like going after KD would be a slam dunk. I want to see what a team built around Herro, Bam, and KD looks like. Great message. If you guys want to leave us messages like this that we could potentially answer on the show, you could do that by signing up to the Locked On Heat Insider program on Subtext. You could do so with the link in the show notes. But David, let's jump right in. We're going to take this whole question and break it down in its parts, and that's the whole show. So Malachi basically did the whole pre-show planning for us here. But let's start with how Kevin Durant fits with the Heat. We're
doing the pros.
What?
Are we looking at the pros, or are we separating pros and cons in that sense? Because I feel like, it's a nuanced conversation, and so they kind of overlap to a certain degree.
I agree. We'll talk about the pros and the cons just in terms of the fit. We'll talk about the fit now, and then we'll talk about the trade package, and then we'll talk about some of the long-term ramifications and the contract compared to the Jimmy Butler extension. We'll save that for the end. So let's kind of get through the pros and cons now. Durant in Miami, what do you think?
I think it's a great idea. On the surface, there are things to consider, and there are potential ramifications. But in terms of what Miami is looking for, a superstar, you can't go wrong. He is still one of the best scorers in the league, even at 36. And I know a lot of people are already making the comparison. Well, you weren't willing to give Jimmy Butler the extension. We'll talk about the contract later on. You had concerns about Jimmy's availability and Jimmy's age. Yes, those concerns still apply to both Jimmy and to Kevin Durant, but Durant's just a better player. We're talking about two very different players. In terms of what Miami is looking for, a top-end scorer that demands defense's respect and his ability to create opportunities for himself and others because of that gravity, because of his ability to create offense for himself in a way that no Heat player has since Dwayne Wade. Like, you don't have that. You haven't had that for years. Jimmy could do it on occasion, or did do it on occasion. Goran Dragic could do it on occasion. Even Bam and Tyler can create it on occasion, but not to the same level as Kevin Durant. He is a historically great player, one of the top 10, 15 players in NBA history. And at the same time, he's still, if not in his prime, still playing at a very high level and can provide Miami exactly what they're looking for offensively. And he hasn't slipped defensively to the point where he's going to ruin Miami's chances of being able to defend other teams. Does he put Miami in contention? That's a question for another, maybe later on in this episode. But as far as his fit, I think it would be a great fit in Miami.
No question. I'm not even terribly interested in making the Jimmy Butler comparison just because Jimmy Butler's not here anymore. He didn't want to be here. It's the sunk cost thing, right? If you can go get a player who makes you better, go get the player that makes you better. And the only reason we're having this conversation is because they play the same position and they're the same age relatively. So, or about there. But we know what it looks like when you have somebody at that spot playing at a really high level. this Heat team, when they have an elite small forward or an elite forward, Jimmy Butler plays both, Kevin Durant plays both. When they have an elite forward who is scoring at a really high level at that spot, with this coach next to Bam anchoring the defense and all that stuff, this team made the finals twice. We know what it looks like. Kevin Durant is that guy, and he's that guy way more often than Jimmy Butler is. And I don't want to do the putting one player down to raise one player up, but I'm just trying to give fans an idea of what's going on here. Durant last year averaged 27 points per game. He averaged 27 points per game the year before that. He would be the highest scoring player in a Miami Heat uniform in the regular season since LeBron James left in 2014, and it wouldn't be close. It wouldn't be close, and that includes Jimmy Butler. And in terms of the availability, 62 games this last year with Phoenix, and they kind of shut him down at the end. 75 games the year before that. I know he had the big Achilles injury and stuff like that. He bounced back in a big way, had some of the best years of his career in Brooklyn after those catastrophic injuries, and then was awesome in Phoenix. So you can just look at the box score stats and be like, wow, the Heat have literally not had a player like Kevin Durant since LeBron. And we see what Eric Spoelstra can do. I remember what Eric Spoelstra did with the Big Three Heat when you gave him a generational player. And that was a much younger Eric Spoelstra, not the Eric Spoelstra now, who is the longest tenured coach in the NBA, officially now. Yeah. And with all of that experience, giving him a talent like Kevin freaking Durant? Are you kidding me? Like, Durant is still widely considered, and I think I agree, appropriately so, a top 10 player in the NBA. There's no question about it. He could shoot the three ball. He could get anywhere on a spot. He's a pretty good passer. He's not LeBron level passing.
Sure.
But he's a guy who averages 5 assists a game for his career, basically. And at 7 feet tall, basically, can make any throw on the court. You know, like, he's going to be able to throw it over the tops of defenses. I actually went back and just watched a bunch of Kevin Durant assists because that's me. Like, my main thing is, does this team have a playmaker? Durant can do it. He can run pick and roll. He could do all that stuff for you. And he was still doing it at a really high level in the last week of the season before he got shut down. So there's no question what Kevin Durant can do. It would be a slam dunk fit. We'll talk about what it would take to give up and the team that it would look like around him. But you put Kevin Durant with Bam and with Tyler Herro. Now you've got Bam anchoring the defense behind Kevin Durant. You know where he didn't have that? Phoenix for a few years. He had nobody anchoring the defense. He would be awesome with Bam on the court next to him. Tyler Herro spacing the floor on the other side. Could you imagine having Kevin Durant in the high post with Tyler Herro running around on the other side of the court and what that would do to defenses? It would be a great fit with those two players.
We've seen that fit before. He had it with Devin Booker, the player that's been compared to Tyler, that Tyler's been compared to for years. And so I think that's a natural fit right there. And the difference is that, well, Bradley Beal is on this roster and Bam Adebayo is. And I think that makes things so much better for Miami.
That's a great call, right? I mean, it's a better roster than with Phoenix. Phoenix gutted their team to get Kevin Durant and, to a different degree, Bradley Beal. But they gutted the team to get Kevin Durant. And I don't know that Miami would have to do that. We'll get into the specifics of a trade package here in a second. But I think Kevin Durant, you don't have a chance to go get a generational talent, to your point, David, very often. And if you can do it, I mean, this is the ultimate white whale for Pat Riley, right? Like, Pat Riley is the best in the league in not trading for Kevin Durant. Like, this would be like the 4th time he's gone after trying to get Kevin Durant. So I'm not counting my eggs before they hatch here, but there's a reason why Riley has gone after him so many times. You know, he sees the vision.
Yes. I think you'd still, this feels like you're kind of shoring up the foundation for the short term. And I don't think it's going to cost you anything for the long term. I know that we can discuss that a little bit later. Mm-hmm. This is probably one of Riley's last moves to kind of bring a contender to Miami until the next superstar becomes available. At the same time, I think KD is what you're looking for in terms of, he's a leader, he is still effective. You don't have to worry about the emotional leadership so much because, quite frankly, that's what you have in Bam Adebayo. And like we saw that with Tyler and his emergence too. So I think KD would slide right in and be like, look, I just want to go hoop. That's who he is at this point in his career. You don't have to worry about the off-court trauma. He's a big personality, a big ego. Why? Because he's one of the top players in NBA history, and that's fine. But you don't hear about him causing trouble. Nope. You don't hear about him rocking the boat. never at any stop, Oklahoma City, Golden State, Phoenix, Brooklyn, etc. And look, quite honestly, the opportunity to have a guy like that in a Heat locker room and just be able to see what one. I mean, we're talking about an all-time great.
An all-timer. Top what? Top 20 minimum all time?
Yes. I mean, depending on look, I know that I mean, we can debate this if you want to, but the reality is that, because he's jumped ship or gone to different teams throughout his career, couldn't win it in Oklahoma City,
Right.
whatever. That I think the perception of him is different, but by any statistical measure, he's one of the top 10 players. Like,
He is,
to me, quite honestly, he's probably a better player than Kobe Bryant. And I don't think anybody considers him among that, but why not? The difference is he hasn't won the same championships.
The skill is without question. Kevin Durant will go down probably as the greatest player not to have a statue in front of an arena. Because I just don't know where he's got the fan base. Maybe Oklahoma City does it.
What
one
jersey
day.
will he wear in the Hall of Fame, right?
Right.
Like,
that's still a great question, right? As somebody who covered Kevin Durant for a couple of years there in Golden State, I could tell you the guy is he was a little bit more prickly with media back then because of the circus around the Warriors at the time. But there are no off the court concerns with this guy. He is, to your point, just a guy who wants to go in there and hoop. That's all he cares about. He is a basketball purist in the purest sense of the phrase. And coaches freaking love this guy. Could you imagine Tyler Herro? Kevin Durant and Steph Curry and LeBron, but when I was covering the Warriors, Steph and KD, legendary post-practice workouts. Legendary. For an hour after practice, still going through their shooting routine. The Heat don't have a player like that because there's not a lot of players like that. Could you imagine Tyler Herro learning from Kevin Durant? He would take another leap. He would. Yeah. It would just by osmosis, just by leading by example. I mean, he would. I think it would be a slam dunk. I'm getting so excited about it. Let's continue this conversation. What would it take to get Kevin Durant? That's probably the biggest question that we have here. We'll talk about that next year on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and personal. You can post a job and it's free and it's simple to do. Within a day, you'll get multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Instead of hiring somebody full-time, Upwork helps find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. So visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com. Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Today's episode also brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena. And with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Listen, I used Game Time recently to get tickets to a Marlins game. What an experience that was. I know the Marlins might not be a great team right now, but I personally love going to Lone Depot Park and catching a ball game. It's so much fun. The
Justin Ramirez, right? Great. I mean, he's great.
Yeah.
He's worth buying a ticket for on Game Time.
Absolutely. It's really a great experience, and you can get tickets so cheap because you can wait until right up to first pitch and maybe even after first pitch, and ticket prices go down so you can save even more money, so you can spend money on concessions and parking and anything else that comes with going to the ball game, and you get their all-in pricing. So no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply, but create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Be an everyday or subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. Let's talk about trade packages for Kevin Durant. What's it going to take here? Durant, quick refresher, was traded from Brooklyn to Phoenix for 4 first-round picks. I think I have that right. A bunch of swaps. Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson. Huge haul for Brooklyn. It would not cost that to get Kevin Durant now because it's been a few years and that's just what happens. This is the part where we talked about, hey, well, you've got Tyler here, you've got Bam Adebayo. The idea in trading for Kevin Durant wouldn't necessarily be, hey, we got to get Durant in the building. It's, hey, we got to compete with Boston and Cleveland. And to do that, we need Durant with Bam and with Tyler. So before we get to the Heat, what the Heat would be willing to offer, I think we have to look at what the Suns are looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Suns don't control their picks. So it doesn't make sense for them to bottom out. I think the way that Matt Ishbia is wired, I think they'd still want to compete. Devin Booker presumably would still be there. I don't know if he would look around and be like, I want to get out of here, but I don't know that we could build that into this hypothetical scenario. So I think the Suns would be looking for role players, depth, and draft picks because they don't have any right now. So to replenish the pick stash and to get role players in depth and stuff that they can use to build around Devin Booker and ostensibly also Bradley Beal because they're stuck with him. So I think that's what it is. And I think the Heat can offer some of those things. They have $65 million. Oh, in salary cap relief, obviously. So the Heat have $65 million in expiring salary. That's helpful. They have essentially three tradable first-round picks. They have a couple of second-round picks that they could throw in. Some interesting young players. But yeah, I mean, from the Phoenix perspective, that's probably what they're looking for, right?
Yeah, it's a great point because draft capital might not be as important here. And if there's one thing Miami has is already proven role players and that have potential for growth. And I think that's the exciting part is that you're going to be entering a somewhat nebulous phase in Suns history. And you kind of want to be able to acquire players that have some upside. And I think Miami has that. At the same time, they're also a proven commodity. It's not the wild X factor of the draft. It's, I know a Jaime Jaquez. I know a Nikola Jovic. I know a X, just to name names. You know, these are players that Miami has on their roster. And while they might not be enough for Miami, at the same time as Phoenix is looking to continue to compete and have a chance of winning some games, because they're not going to be very good. That's the reality. But you want to be able to say, oh, well, we have some young, promising players that can help usher in the next level. Well, guess what? That's what Miami has. They have young, promising players that can help them get through this temporary hump until their next phase, whatever that might be.
I'll push back on promising just because we don't know Phoenix's. I mean, maybe Phoenix agrees, maybe they don't. Right? We don't know their scout on those guys. But look, the two teams
you can talk yourself into those guys being promising, though, right? I mean,
I mean, they're not trading. They're not trading draft busts. In other words, they're not dead salary. But no, I mean these two sides had conversations before the trade deadline. Phoenix was asking for everything. I have it on pretty good intel that they did ask for Kel'el Ware. Now, I don't know that they necessarily asked for Kel'el Ware specifically, or if Kel'el Ware was just part of everything. Right? No. If they just asked for everything and Ware was part of it.
James Jones no longer the general manager there. Though.
Great point. Yeah, new GM there. Guy who's only been working with the organization in the NBA for a year, so probably an awesome hire. Another slam dunk by Matt Ishbia. But we'll see, right? Like, yeah, it's a great point. Like they negotiated once, not so much with this group. So we'll see what they think about these guys. But I have one question for you before I give you the trade package I came up with. Would you be willing to include Kel'el Ware in a Kevin Durant trade?
It's a tricky one, because I think there's a lot of potential there. So I would not. I would not. I just don't think you're going to be able to get another 7-footer with potential the way that he is. And I think there's room for him to grow clearly. And we saw that in the playoffs. We saw that over the course of his rookie season. But he would be the last straw. I mean, Nico, Jaime, as much as we appreciate those guys and really enjoy covering them, I don't know that they have the same high-end potential as Ware does.
Right. And Durant plays their position, right, at that forward spot.
Certainly.
Ware is Miami's starting center and the guy that allows Bam to play power forward. And we saw how much better Bam was at power forward than he was at center.
It's a huge lineup for Miami there with KD at 7 feet or 6'11".
And we talked about having to cover up for Tyler Herro's defensive inefficiencies. That's one way to do it. Just be huge everywhere else. And Durant's still a capable defender, for the record.
Yeah.
Not what he was at Golden State, where he's basically playing center for them in a lot of lineups. But yeah, he's still pretty good on that end. I hope the Phoenix Suns are not listening to this. Would I be willing to include Khalil Ware? Yes, but it would be the last. It would be the last thing.
Yeah,
it would be the absolute. Oh my God, we have to get this done. We're competing with X, Y, and Z on this, and if we include Ware in the deal, then we get Kevin Durant. It would stink, but you'd almost have to do it. I think, yeah. Unless you're willing to wait until 2026 when Durant is potentially a free agent. But if he's going to get traded, I'm not going to assume that Durant is going to make free agency in 2026 because he's extension eligible. We'll put a pin in that part. Here's the trade package I came up with. Here's my final best offer that I could think of that doesn't include Khalil Ware. Wiggins or Rozier, Phoenix's choice. Do you want the better player in Wiggins, or do you want the salary cap relief with Rozier because he comes off the books in a year? So up to you. You pick. Duncan Robinson, you include him in the deal with one of those other guys, and then Phoenix can waive him right away. $10 million in cap savings right off the bat. That is a huge deal, and I don't think can be overlooked in this trade, especially when you compare what Miami can offer to what other teams potentially could offer. The fact that they can offer $10 million in cap relief, and for Phoenix, who's way above the luxury tax, that's like $40 million in savings or something like that. Then Jaime Jaquez or Nikola Jovic or both or whatever. Quite frankly, I don't care. And then up to the 3 first-round picks, and they can have, I don't know, 2 of them, 3 of them. I don't know. That's when the negotiations get in. But that would be the bones of the deal. Wiggins or Rozier, you pick Phoenix. Do you want the better player or the salary cap relief in a year? That's up to you. We don't care. Take your pick. Duncan Robinson, understanding that you're probably going to waive him and save a bunch of money. Jaime Jaquez is a nice young player from the LA area, not far away from Phoenix. I don't know if that matters to you. And then the draft capital. And then we can try to have the Ware conversation. We can try to have the Nico conversation. We can haggle over the amount of draft picks and the protections. But I think that's where you get into the competition. Who else is trading for 36-year-old Kevin Durant? He's a great fit in Miami.
Yeah.
I came up with a list. Of teams. We could talk about that plus the extension right after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Open Phone Business. You know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber or a service provider of some kind. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Well, probably not. You moved on. That's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is a #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. They let you manage business calls and texts from the single app. That's right, just one app. The shared inbox feature is a game changer. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. And their AI agent handles all after-hour calls, answers common questions, and it captures leads so you never miss out on getting a new customer. Open Phone is offering listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OpenPhone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have an existing number with another service, well, Open Phone will port those over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. We'll be right back.
So I came up with a handful of teams that I think could be in the market for Kevin Durant. Houston is the obvious one. I still think that the Rockets probably have their eyes on something a little bit bigger, somebody that matches their timeline a little bit more. But if they want to get in the mix, they could beat Miami's offer with, a handful of the assets that they have. No question about it. But I think they're probably looking at maybe Devin Booker, Giannis. Like this, these are the names that Houston is more involved with. Not so much Kevin Durant. But OKC has to be in that. They're down 0-1 to the Nuggets while we're recording this. If they lose in the second round for the second straight year, could they look to make some changes? Bring Kevin Durant home? Cool story. You could basically just swap, I think, like Jalen Williams for Durant. Would they be willing to do that? I don't know.
No.
San Antonio is interesting. Dallas, Minnesota, Memphis. Am I forgetting anybody? You have any thoughts on these?
No, I think San Antonio is the right option. I mean, well, it would have been. I wonder if his timeline now with De'Aaron Fox and Wembanyama there. It's
Hmm.
interesting, but at least it's something that you can kind of build off, and it's a nice name, et cetera. So I think that would make a lot of sense. Houston, I don't think he's a right fit for Houston, to be honest with you. But
Hmm.
this also feels eerily similar to the conversations we had a couple of seasons ago when we were talking about Dame Lillard.
Hmm.
Like the fit just seemed like such a slam dunk and such an easy one with Miami, and then from out of nowhere, zoom, Milwaukee comes in, and that I don't think anybody really saw that one coming until it was at the last second because it just again maybe we
Well, the one
were
difference is Lillard was under contract,
sure.
and Durant is potentially a free agent in 2026. So he can kind of mark his spot a little bit more than Lillard could. Lillard's situation is actually weirdly similar to Giannis's situation, where Giannis is still under contract for 3 more years, and he could tell Milwaukee if he demands a trade, hey, I want to go here. And Milwaukee would be like, well, we don't care. You're under contract for 3 more years. You have no leverage in this situation. That's what
Yeah.
got in Damian Lillard's way. Like if Detroit comes around and says, hey, we would love Kevin Durant, Kevin Durant could just tell him, yeah, I'm not re-signing in Detroit. Why would you give up
Yeah, that's
stuff
good.
for me?
That's a good point. That's fair.
But the
I
same
get
could
that.
go for San Antonio, right? Like maybe he does look at Victor Wembanyama and De'Aaron Fox and is like, yeah, I really want to play there. But he also might just be like, I'm not that into the Riverwalk. I don't want to go there.
I don't know what he's looking for at this stage of his career. I mean, you could probably have
It's
asked
a
that
great question.
question several times over the last few seasons. Like even the decision to go to Brooklyn, as good as he was, that never really felt like you were building a legitimate title contender. Not with Harden as one of your quote unquote big
Well,
three.
he thought it
I
was.
guess so.
Well,
I
so
guess so.
that's great. So I love this line of thinking because he went to Golden State because they had something established and he loved the way they played and he thought, hey, you just lost to Cleveland. I'm the piece that could put you over the top. I need a championship. You need me. Let's make this sweet basketball love together, right? And that's what he did. And then he's like, you know what? This wasn't really my thing. I never really felt like it was my thing. I'm going to go to Brooklyn and build my own thing there. And that's why he picked Brooklyn over the Knicks because it was
Yeah.
almost just a fresh brand, let alone a
Yeah.
fresh team. And he was like, I could be the man, the all-time Brooklyn Net. I could do that now. And it obviously, to your point, didn't work. Then he gets traded midseason to Phoenix. And Phoenix and Miami was on his list of destinations. Phoenix overpaid for him. They got him. Congrats. But then you heard this year that he told the Suns front office, I don't want to get traded because he didn't want to get traded midseason again, probably because of how poorly it worked out the last time he got traded midseason to Phoenix.
Yeah.
That tells me that he's looking for a somewhere he can win, and I would bet he's probably going to go back to stability. He's kind of tried to do his own thing a couple of times, and it didn't work. Durant's really smart. He's probably like, you know what? It's probably time for stability again. What I was seeking when I left Oklahoma City for Golden State, I'm probably looking for obviously basketball joy on the court, but stability too. And San Antonio can offer that. Miami can offer that. Oklahoma City can offer that. Does he go back to Dallas to try to play with Kyrie Irving? I don't know. Probably. I don't know that Dallas can even get in that. We heard what he thinks. We've heard what stars think of Memphis. I don't think that would be really interesting to him. Minnesota to play with Anthony Edwards, who he has
No.
a relationship with. You don't think so?
No. I mean, again, in if you're looking at it from that perspective, like San Antonio makes a lot of sense because Pop, although retired, El Jefe is still hanging around, and you've got the consistency and stability of Duncan and Manu Ginobili and everybody else that's been
Mhm.
part of that franchise, and you still have young, exciting players that you can play alongside with, and it just that feels like it would welcome a guy like Durant in a really kind of organic and natural way. But Miami, conversely, is also just we love basketball here. We breathe basketball. This is
Mhm.
about basketball. Even though we're in South Florida, and we talked about this. This is our primary focus, and we have the guys who are competitive, and we'll try to bring that out. And it's either or. It's either or. If he's looking for more of a, say, not relaxed necessarily, but maybe a different kind of not as militaristic vibe, then San Antonio is probably as close to what you had in Golden State. Because Steve Kerr, obviously, of the Popovich
Right.
tree, I think that's something that you would probably find very similar in San Antonio. Although, do you want to play for a new coach in San Antonio? You're not
Well,
playing
that's
for
the
Pop.
point. Who in Kevin Durant's mind, who's closer to contending, San Antonio or Miami? Because I think a lot of basketball fans might say San Antonio, they got Victor Wembanyama, they got the centerpiece, of course. Whereas Miami, they're sort of in this nebulous middle ground. But Kevin Durant probably sees Eric Spoelstra, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Herro, 2 All-Stars, best coach in the league. And one thing I did leave out that I shouldn't have left out, of all the decisions that he made when he was moving teams and putting teams on his list of preferred destinations, never a small market. Oklahoma City was the end of that. It was always at least cities. He is a basketball player at the end of the day. And I don't know a single basketball player on the planet, other than De'Aaron Fox, I suppose, that would pick San Antonio over Miami. I just that tends to be
there were
the
ties
thing.
there. Oh, but he played in Texas.
He's from Texas and that whole thing too. So that's
no, I'm saying
KD
KD played at Texas though.
Oh, Kevin Durant played at Texas. Yeah, but he's also but he's from the DMC. He went to Texas, and he's not a man of roots. That's not a thing that happens with him. All right, I want to move on to the extension part of this. So Durant is eligible for a 2-year, $122 million extension, basically the same extension that Jimmy Butler was eligible for. And back to Malachi's question to kick this whole podcast off, he asked, would Miami be willing to give Durant the extension that they weren't willing to give Jimmy Butler? I understand the question. I dismiss the question. I don't think it matters.
Why?
I don't think it matters because the Jimmy Butler thing was, even though the money is similar and the ages of the players are similar, the Jimmy Butler situation was unique. There was, I think it's fair to say, baggage.
Sure.
Even before the Pat Riley comments, there was tensions between Jimmy Butler and the front office. I think that's loosely kind of, been talked about, but it was there. And there were availability concerns based on the previous season. I just think that there's and a track record of, we're pretty much a 500 team in the regular season, and it kind of stinks. And we're kind of held hostage by this playoff Jimmy Butler guy who we hope shows up and usually shows up, but we always are sort of waiting for him to show up. Where Kevin Durant is new, and maybe more importantly, when Jimmy Butler left, it became clear how important Jimmy Butler was. And now you need a star player in a major way. And I think Miami is probably a little bit more, maybe desperate's not the right word, but maybe it is. Like more desperate for that player now than they were when they even had Jimmy Butler under contract, because they kind of saw how south things went after Jimmy Butler left. So, I understand the question. I kind of dismiss it because I think Miami at this point, if they had the opportunity to go get a guy who in Kevin Durant is still one of the best 10 players in the league, frankly, better than Jimmy Butler. Sorry, people. He is. I think you would just do it. And I think you would sign him to the extension. There's one more bit on the extension that I want to get to, but do you agree with me?
I do. I think it's probably the move that Miami would make, and I know that it's going to be convenient for a lot of people. We've already heard that, like we've made or hinted at KD and a link to Miami before, and a lot of fans kind of respond, "Well, why would you pay him if you weren't willing to pay Jimmy?" It's a very different situation. It's not about that. It's, as you said, KD is the better player, and I think, despite all the warm, fuzzy feelings and the memories of Jimmy's stint here, there were legitimate concerns about what Jimmy could do to bring this team to that next level, as good as he was. And we're seeing that with Golden State. Like, he is not a number one option. He never wanted to be that. He could be that, and he was forced to be that in Miami, but that's not who he is. He could be a really, really good, let's say 1Z. If he's not a 1A or a 1B,
he's Robin. He's self-proclaimed Robin. He wants to be Robin.
This Robin really kicks ass, but he's still Robin. He doesn't want to be. That was Steph. And they didn't have that in Miami. KD, no. KD's number one. He's been number one the whole time, and that's it. Yeah. And he's got the utility belt. He just takes it with him everywhere.
Why didn't Miami want to give Jimmy Butler the extension? 2 things: tensions behind the scenes. They were just that was happening, and age, but moreover the availability. I think the age was less of a concern. It was really the availability. So tensions behind the scenes and availability. Does Kevin Durant bring tension behind the scenes currently to Miami? No. He would come in fresh start, all fuzzy feelings. Does Kevin Durant have availability concerns? No, not really. He's played 65 plus games the last 2 or whatever it was this past year. Again, they shut him down at the end of the year. Probably could have played closer to 70 games, and then 70 plus games the year before that. Kevin Durant does not have availability concerns. Okay, and he's an awesome basketball player. I think they would be willing to give him the 2-year, $122 million extension. Here's the other part about it, and we'll end on this. It's perfect for how Miami's timeline runs out because Kevin Durant, 36 years old, doesn't line up with Bam at 27, Tyler Herro 25. I hear you. He does make that more competitive right now. I think you add Kevin Durant to that mix, you have a legit playoff team. No, the days of the play-in tournament probably gone. If you've got Durant, Bam, Tyler, Spo, and however they fill out the roster. But to get into the cap Excel sheet geekery real quick, and I won't bore you with the numbers too much, but it would end up being a pretty clean cap for Miami, despite how expensive Kevin Durant gets. So he would come in right away, and let's say it's the package that I proposed in the last segment, David Wiggins, Duncan Robinson heading out. You would have Durant at $54.7 million, Bam at $37 million, Tyler at $31 million. Terry Rozier is still there at $26 million. Can they get off of that somehow? Perhaps. Can they waive and stretch it? Maybe. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But after that, after Rozier comes off the books, you look a year from now, let's say you give Durant the extension, which would pay him roughly $61 million a year over the next 2 years. It'd be $61 million, $51 million, $33 million. So $61 million to KD, $51 to Bam, $33 to Tyler. I know those sound like huge numbers. That's what a playoff team pays their top 3 players. You have 2 max guys in KD and Bam, and then a high-level role player, fringe all-star, and Tyler Herro making $30 million a year. And then you've got Kyle Anderson at a non-guaranteed $9 million. That's your next biggest salary. And then it's Khalil Ware. It's maybe Jaime Jaquez, Pelle Larson, perhaps, if they're still on the roster, whatever. But your books are clean. You have a lot of space below the apron, all that stuff. You go another year, assuming that you sign KD to the full 2-year 122, it's $61 million, $55 million, and $50 million if you give Tyler Herro the extension. And that's really expensive. But it's only expensive for 1 year. You could bite the bullet for 1 year. By the way, you have basically nobody else except for potentially Khalil Ware under contract for that year, besides those 3 guys. So you could build out the roster. It could be expensive. It could be tough. But you're really only biting that bullet for 1 year. And then after that, Durant's off your books. And then you've got Bam and Tyler for $59 million and $50 million. So those guys are expensive, and we already had the Tyler Herro conversation. I still think you can't really make that decision on Herro based on what you got to pay him 3 years from now. So I think you just give him the extension if you believe Tyler Herro is part of this thing. But yeah, it's pretty clean. It kind of works. So even though the money sounds like a lot when you talk about the extension and what Tyler Herro is up for and everything like that, it pretty much overlaps perfectly for when Tyler Herro is due to make the big money and Bam is really making a lot of that money. Kevin Durant's off your books. And while you have Kevin Durant, your cap sheet is pretty clean for the most part, which allows you to build around those 3 guys.
I'll say this before we wrap it up. I don't think it's the best option for Miami to retool for future contention, but I think it's a damn good option. There are other names out there that might fit better, and my concern is about the timeline. Despite what you just laid out in terms of salary cap and things of that sort, that's a more financially focused timeline. I just think that the problem with Miami has been where they've been over the last couple of seasons with Jimmy Butler kind of operating with 2 timelines simultaneously, and that hasn't worked. And I think you're kind of getting back on that track with KD, being that he's at the age that he is. Although I think KD is probably a better fit for this particular roster with Tyler and Bam than Jimmy was. And it's just a matter of how you build the rest of the roster around him. But despite that, I think that he's still a great fit for Miami, and I think he would be a great next phase for this Heat basketball team. I think it would be a lot of fun and interesting and good basketball being played for the next 3 seasons with KD on this roster, even if it doesn't wind up in a title.
Well said. I think I agree with you. Probably not the best option of all the dream scenarios. Might be the only good option that Miami has. And if that's what it ends up being, that's what it ends up being. That's it for us today. We'll have 2 more shows for you this week. We're going to have one Friday morning and then another one after Pat Riley's press conference on Friday afternoon. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night until an NBA champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NBA Game Night on Locked On NBA on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.